what, golf, I'm not pounding my body. I've got longevity, but there's different sections, or there's different levels to it. So you have to continue to advance.
For sure.
To make
For sure. You're either, moving up the world amateur golf rankings or moving up the world professional golf rankings. And so those are tangible, here's where I am and here's where I need to be.
Yeah.
And then there's also those, those individual skills. My individual skills are getting better, and those will help me improve my world ranking or my standing. But one thing about golf is you never get cut. You can keep, if you have money to keep playing, you can just keep entering tournaments and keep going forever. Where I think, that's a negative as well. Whereas in hockey or basketball or soccer or other sports, we get cut. I wanted to play in the I wanted to play in the NHL, Daryl, and I learned really quickly, geez, I keep getting cut. This may not happen to me. I'm not fast enough. But anyway, yeah. So
I actually had, one of my questions was exactly what you said. So I'm going to ask you now, how do you balance out high expectations, optimism with pragmatic, realistic goals?
Yeah, I mean, expectations. We all have expectations of ourselves, and as coaches and as athletes, and so our athletes have high expectations, but we try and put those to the side and really focus and fall in love with the process. The day-to-day stuff that we know if we do that, it's going to give our best possible chance. And so, I'm a big believer in focusing on the process, and as the metaphor is pounding the stone every day, because you never know which pound on that stone is going to make the big impact. So I've been the guy, even though I keep a job based on getting results. Yeah. I don't, with my athletes, we generally don't talk about results or outcomes very often. We focus on doing the right thing every day, every week, every month. It doesn't mean that there isn't a hard discussion about outcomes at some point, because like I said, I keep a job based on that as well. But I've always been able to focus on the results, and our athletes have gotten great results. I've been able to focus on the process, and our athletes have really gotten great results by doing that, focusing on the day-to-day stuff.
So that's interesting to me. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Before, during college, my 2 years after, and for my career, I've been in sales. And when it was about 22, when I was working part-time for a telemarketing company selling, believe it or not, web pages before the internet was, AOL, you had to download the internet from a disk. That's brutal. Even saying that. And my manager could see, my sales manager could see I was struggling with this business to business selling. And he pulled me aside and he gave me a golf analogy. And this was formative to me at 22. And he said, Daryl, sales is like golf, right? He said, there's cause and effect and there's a process. And if you focus, and if you don't get the result that you want, you come back to the process and look to see where you were at and how to make improvements. It sounds like, you just said, it sounds like that's true and relevant in your world. He's not just really poke my way.
No, it really is. So that I've been doing that for 10 or 15 years. My boss really loves his scorecard, his outcomes, and his results. And, I do that. I set that at the beginning of the year as well with my players and for myself personally. But then I get into the day-to-day getting dirty of just, hey, this is what we want to accomplish this day and this week and this month in terms of, process goals and really focusing on those. And if we do that, we're going to give ourselves our best opportunity to get the outcomes and results that we want. And so I've been, since seeing as I've been fairly successful, we always want to be way better at doing that. Then I just kept doing that. I've been like, okay, well, we got to focus in the daily minutia, the mundane of daily getting stuff done. But that's going to have the big effect. It's not that sexy. It's really sexy to talk about outcomes and results and winning, but those are byproducts of doing the right thing.
Yeah, they're not too sexy. Everybody, there's lots of memes out there that, and this is relevant to you, that, Olympians are recognized at the Olympics, right? But they're made in the day-to-day. They're made in the habits and the routines and the rituals.
For sure. It's the daily doing the work in the dark when there's no one around. That's the separator, honestly, doing the work in the dark when there's nobody around you get recognized, especially as an Olympian, where it's possibly once every 4 years, maybe world championships once every year. I really have a respect a lot for some of those Olympians where, it all comes down to the Olympics or world championships every year, every second year in golf. The PGA Tour, they've got 47 tournaments a year. Or 30. The average player will play 30 tournaments a year. So obviously, you're trying to peak for the majors if you're a top player. But you have 30 opportunities, and the next year you're going to have 30 opportunities if you keep your PGA Tour card. But in those other sports, imagine the pressure of those other sports. The only opportunity to get recognized and possibly make money is a World Championship or Olympic gold medal or Pan American Games. That's real pressure.
Yeah, that is. And the difference between the winners or the medalists and non-medalists is so small. Yeah. So I did a little bit. The only research I could find, or the research I did and I could find, was some of the standings from Rio, the Canadian men's in Rio, and so I think the I got it right here, Derek. Let me just see if this resonates with you. So the score of the gold medalists finished up with 268, and between 268 and Canada had placed 20th and had 280, 12 strokes. But what was interesting is between 20 and 60, there was less, I think 15 strokes. So you've got inches, like millimeters, just to, and one more stroke, and you jump from 60 to 40, and one more stroke, and you're in the top 20. It's crazy.
It is. And golf at the Olympics and in the majors, especially at the Olympics, where you really, like you said, you only honestly at the Olympics get paid for 3 spots: first, second, and third, gold, silver, and bronze. Thankfully, golf isn't like that on the PGA Tour or in the majors. The guy finishes 55th at a major, still gets a decent check. But you are right. It's the difference between in one shot or 2 shots in golf is staggering. And over the course of a year, the amount of money they can make, or the ability to keep their card and continue to be in the PGA Tour, is so significant. That's one of the things I remind my guys in their daily training environment. I always say to them, you never know which touch of the ball is going to have the greatest impact going forward. So try and give your full attention to every touch of the ball you have. That's actually a soccer analogy. I stole it from a soccer coach. But in golf practice, where you might do 500 reps or 700 reps a day, you don't want to be you just don't want to be mindlessly hitting golf balls. You want those reps to count, because a quarter of a shot in my world on the PGA Tour, a quarter of a shot for my athletes is probably worth a quarter of a shot around is worth maybe $2 million a year for them, maybe more.
Just that difference.
Yeah, quarter of a shot around is worth $2 million a year.
Wow.
So it's you never know what touch of the ball is going to have the greatest impact, and that's why you don't want to wave at them or just not give them your fullest attention.
Yeah. So what do you do when you have an athlete that is talented, is progressing, but perhaps it isn't giving their attention in every moment and potentially fulfilling their potential? How do you process that as a coach? What's going through your mind? How do you help them?
Well, first, we'll look at, if that's happening, if they've got that talent, that ability, and they're not getting the results, it's usually 1 or 2 or 3 things in general. It could be a fact that their practice or their daily training environment isn't good enough. It's not tight enough. It's not pushing them enough. They're not learning enough from it, or they're not present enough to that. So we're going to look at their daily training environment and make sure that they have that they are aware of the importance of that, and they're present to every shot they're hitting. And it might be less volume and higher quality, or it might be more volume, but we still want to keep that quality up. So that's one thing. And we do a lot of, like with our athletes, we do a lot of mental skills training. Even though I'm a skills coach, pretty decent at the mental side of the game. And we've got a sports psychologist, Dr. Adrian Leslie Toogood, who's fantastic. So we do a lot of stuff to focus on your breathing, be aware of your how your body's feeling. So we use a couple great apps, a couple great tools just to and we try and stress our athletes and then see how quickly they can recover, just like they would in the golf course.
Yeah.
So that's some of the stuff we'd use both in training and then try and use it in competition. The other stuff is they may not be reflecting. And I find that's really important for our top athletes is after every round and after every tournament to take time to reflect. And what did I do well? What would I like to do better? And then how am I going to do that? And I think that, as a coach, that's really important as well. I want to get feedback from both my athletes, and I want to take time to self-reflect. But one of the difference makers for high-level athletes is that ability to reflect and learn from their mistakes, as opposed to making the same mistakes over and over again for years.
We could just let that marinate in, man. That's huge. Like, the ability to reflect and consistently improve.
Yeah, and I find in this time, Daryl, for me, I don't know if we were talking about this or I was talking with somebody else last week when we were on the phone, but there's so much great information out there. Oh, there's a great webinar. There's another new book I want to read, and there's this person I want to listen to, or that wicked podcast. And for me personally, what's worked is to take one of those things, maybe the top thing, and really dive into it, really get deep into it, really spend time there, and then try and highlight the key points. Here's an example. I read a really good book, and then I summarized the book into 10 pages of things that I can take away. And now I'm rereading it, and trying to say, okay, how can I apply these to my life that's going to make me a better coach, a better person, a better dad.
You just geeked out on it.
I did. As opposed to what I get a little overwhelmed when I just touch that book. I get in the book reading contest to who can read the most books and post it online and tell their buddies, but I don't take anything. I don't learn from any of those things. They just scratch the surface. And same with podcasts. I like that. I'm a bit weird. I am a total geek, but I will actually, take notes on the podcast.
Yeah.
I go, okay, here's some things that I can apply to my coaching or to my communication skills or to myself as a parent or as a husband, and then try and summarize the top 2 or 3 things and use them. But now, and that's been great about this time. But I also found myself getting overwhelmed with all the great resources and trying to do them all at the same time. I don't know if you can relate to that or not.
Yeah, earlier on in the shutdown, yeah, that was the case. The calendar was filling up, and at the end of the day, I was the day flew by, and all I just remember is looking at my calendar, and it was back-to-back webinars. And there's something to be said by just taking a step back and being present and being mindful of the information that we're consuming. It was actually just to your point, 2 days ago, I just went down and did a revision on the apps on my phone because it's just too much coming in, right? Yeah. Too much attention. So just cut it in. Hang on right there. We should just cut it in half. And
yeah, you actually have a phone there. It's not just
because it's too much information coming at you, which can be overwhelming and spread you too thin.
Yeah, and then you can't do I can't do a good job of anything because I'm trying to do a teeny bit of a job on 100 things instead of a really, really good job on 1 or 2 or 3 things that are important to me or very important to what I bring to the table as a coach.
You mind sharing what that book is that you just looked at?
Oh, the book is Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh.
And I don't know, and it just talks about and again in golf, I find the best athletes in some cases aren't the most talented. They're just the players or the athletes who have finely tuned processes and habits daily that they just keep adding good day onto good day, good week onto good week, and then good year onto good year. And you're looking after a while, you look back and go, wow, that guy's really, really good. But when I saw him 6 or 7 years ago, I thought, I wonder if this person has the talent or the ability to do it. And then, so I've learned as well. And then I look and I go, yeah, they definitely do. They've done the daily things really, really well. Those not sexy things, those boring things really, really well. And now they look like a superstar. Now you're looking going, holy crow, how great are they looking? And so that was one of the reasons I got into that book, Atomic Habits. I got benefited a lot from it. I thought there's some really good stuff there.
I've heard good things about it. That might be my next book.
I've got one more for you, and then this book is called Pound the Stone by Joshua Medcalf.
Haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's a story. 7 habits to develop grit on the path to mastery. I really like his books, and they're stories, they're parables. I think this is a correct word. I'm trying to count. It was on the tip of my tongue, but great stuff there. Really about pounding the stone, about doing the daily things really, really well that are going to lead to long-term success, and really falling in love with that daily stuff.
I love it. Are you an NBA fan? Like, do you watch, or do you get a chance to watch when the Raptors, had their stories?
I love the Raptors, and I was in the '80s. I'm quite a bit older than you. I was a Lakers fan, and I loved the Lakers and the Celtics basketball. I love basketball, and then I went away from it. But I'm just so thrilled we've got the Raptors back in Canada, because I've become, and even a little bit before that, I became a Steve Nash fan. But now I'm just such a huge Raptors fan, and we're watching highlights. Never thought I'd be like that, but just love it. Yeah.
So you followed the Raptors when they, or you started paying attention when they came back in '94, so did you see the different coaching changes over the years and the different management changes?
Well, I just was a very casual fan when they first came back. But I've really fallen in love with, is it Messiah?
Messiah Ujiri, yeah.
Yeah, and but even the last 7 or 8 years, they're, because they're fairly newish. I've been a fan, but really a fan of how they've the work they've done. Obviously, last year was the pinnacle.
Yeah. So Derek, what we're talking about, it makes me think of the Raptors. It's one of the reasons why I really, really enjoy the organization. Because they went through this struggle, man, and they're saying it's pound the rock. That's how I bridge this, because you got pound the stone, right? Yeah. And it was that day in and day out grind, and they went through. There's so many mental barriers, and I'm observing this, and then maybe empathizing a little bit as an athlete, and trying to understand what could be going on, knowing this at a higher level, but they went through this. Breaking into the playoffs, losing first round, and then doing that consistently and having to get past that to get to the second round, and then maybe moving to the second round. I can't remember the exact sequence, but maybe moving to the third round, but then losing right away, and then not getting past for another couple years. But they always came back to talking about the process. And cool. What I love so much about them is that it was never about. I'm sure they had a great player in Kawhi come in, but it was always about the team, and it was always about the process that we're going through.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going mobile a little bit here.
Yeah, take that again.
Just some noise. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, and they kept adding. They didn't try and get home run every year. They kept adding pieces and building upon those pieces.
Yeah.
And I think if you just looked and you'd say, oh, it was Kawhi who did it last year, but no, they'd added really important pieces like Lowry and Gasol and throughout the last couple of years that made a huge difference. And they had great coaching as well. And yeah, they really were pounding the rock. And you never know when it's going to break or if it's going to break. But very likely it is. But if you put your attention on the process, you have just so much better opportunity to have success. And I think for Canada, I was just thrilled for the win last year. And it also seems like it's about people with the Raptors as well as performance, and which I kind of value as well.
Right, you can see it. You take that approach, giving attention to each player and what they need, versus just setting expectations and waiting for them to perform.
No, I get drawn to coaches like that and to leaders like that who are trying to. It's not only about the outcome. It's not only about winning. It's also about developing people and investing in people and getting the best out of people. Instead of, oh, this person didn't get it done, we'll cast him off. We'll get to the next person. He'll get it done. If they don't get it, we'll cast them off. They really invested time and a belief in people. I think there's some value there for sure.
I agree. I think that's huge. And it's great that they were recognized on a global stage as having that type of culture, right? Because it, until you win, it's always the secondary thought, perhaps even a weakness.
Yeah.
But it's great to get over the hump and then be able to promote that.
Yeah, and how about this year without Kawhi? Everyone said, oh, yeah, once Kawhi's gone, they won't be any good. But all those players have grown, and with really a very similar, almost exact same team, except they've eliminated a ultra superstar, and they're still great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that speaks tons to the culture and the coaching and the system and their processes. So I don't want to be redundant, but we were talking about habits and process. One of the questions that I'm so curious of your opinion is, how do you help players that do hit that glass ceiling? How do you help them get to a higher level of performance? But you had mentioned, I heard you say that, we look at their some of their daily habits, we look at their environment, look at if they're being challenged enough. But from a mental standpoint, from a mental perspective, how do you break that ceiling of winding up with the same score at the end and getting to that point where you break through?
Yeah, I guess we've had some success with people training for them to start to enjoy, embrace, wrap their head around being comfortable in those really uncomfortable situations. Those ones that really, make you feel like you're certainly not comfortable. You're extremely nervous. You don't even like them possibly. And I think that's one of the differences between people that win, and it is such a fine line in golf. Well, there's only one winner every week. There's 154, 144 players of the best of the best of the PGA Tour each week, and there's only one winner. And a great season can be winning once. So you have to fall in love with, or at least enjoy, or try to enjoy, or find a way to manage those very uncomfortable situations where you're choking, or where the height of pressure is on you. And, so one cool thing we did, honestly, Daryl, that was, I think, made a really big difference for one of our athletes, Corey Connors. He's a winner in the PGA Tour, a top 30 player in the PGA Tour last year. Was we set up a session with the people at Cirque du Soleil in Vegas, and we went down there and got really into their training, and we had one of their sports psychologists or mental performance coaches there take us through some of their training sessions. And she'd also done some work for Red Bull as well, and was really what it did is it got our athletes and put them in super uncomfortable situations, role playing, improv, and getting into the work and being comfortable looking like a goof, or just being comfortable doing stuff that they really would never want to do, and then coming up with strategies to be able to take that in the golf course. And so, we're always trying to find any way to drive home a point that, and some people it comes super natural to, like some people you may know, they can be comfortable in those situations and they're really great at handling it. Other people, it doesn't mean they're not going to do it, just it requires more hard work and strategies for it. So that was really neat. That was a great experience for us to be able to be at Cirque and train with those athletes and see how they did it. And also for me as a coach to throw myself into that as well. Not be afraid to look like a goofball, not be afraid to look, completely uncomfortable or uncoordinated, and also just get into doing it as opposed to judging myself so much and thinking about it. So I would say that's one of the things we've done is we've really tried to practice and train in an environment where you have to be extremely uncomfortable, so that they're going to be able to do it when the chips are down, and that's what's going to happen at the highest level on the PGA Tour for our athletes, and ultimately, hopefully, at the Olympics, when we're able to have one of those athletes achieve a medal.
When you're able to actually go to the Olympics. So
yeah.
let's chat quickly about that, or take as much time as you have there. The team is excited you qualify.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's preparing, getting their heads wrapped around, telling their families, locking in their routines. I'm sure planning on what the days are going to look like leading up to the Olympics, and then COVID-19 happens. And there's this uncertainty for a little bit, and then finally Canada steps up and just says, "Listen, for the safety of our athletes, we're deciding to not participate regardless of what happens." And then, of course, the other countries followed suit, and IOC decides, it's not going on in Japan this year. How do you and your athletes process how anticlimactic that is? And and then go through it to a point and get through it to where you can, I'm sure you're in the recovery where I won't speak for you, but I'm assuming after you kind of grieve it a little bit, you reset the focus, you realign the plans to whatever the potential new dates are. But just take me through that, how you're processing it, how you're helping your athletes process that disappointment.
Yeah, no, initially, I want to say I'm so thrilled to be a Canadian and really proud to be a Canadian when you take the bull by the horns and you do the right thing when it's hard to do that. It's easy to do the right thing, a lot of times, but in this case, it was very difficult to do the right thing. And so just thrilled to be a Canadian, to be a part of that, and call myself part of Team Canada, that we took the leadership to say, no, it's not safe for us and it's not safe for anybody. And so we're not going to go. It was, however, a really empty, shocking feeling for those athletes. Fortunate for me, I'd been there in 2016. The two athletes on the men's side that I was coaching were new Olympians who really were playing great and felt like I've got a legitimate chance of winning a medal and playing well at the Olympics. So, and the qualifying hadn't finished. There was still a couple more months, but it was likely going to be those two players, although anything could happen. So, for them, it was difficult, and for me, I'd just come home. I think I mentioned to you, Daryl, that I'd just come home from Tokyo and taking a look at the golf course and doing some R&D in the athletes' village and really trying to help us prepare. So it was difficult for myself as well. But, as initially there was shock, we were wondering if there was going to be an Olympics. And now that they've rescheduled it, I think people can refocus. I do feel for some of those athletes that have 100% qualified, but now what's happened is the Canadian Olympic Committee said is you're going to keep your qualification, so they're still going. The athletes that hadn't qualified still have a year to try and qualify, so that's good. But again, in golf, we're fortunate. All those players are PGA Tour players. They're doing very well financially. I feel a little bit more sorry for the smaller sports where they have that one opportunity every 4 years. I really feel for them. But you have to reset your target. You have to say, okay, you're allowed to mourn and to be sad, to be a little bit angry and question things for a little bit, and then it's time to rejig your plan a little bit and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do leading up to the next Olympics and how I'm going to train for that, and to set targets a week, a month, 6 months down the road for that. So and we had a lot of work with our sports psychologists and a lot of national team athletes have, not just in golf and other sports. And I think they've done a great job. Sport Canada, the COC, they've done a great job of helping those athletes through these tough times. Great conference calls, great Zoom calls like this with experts a lot smarter than I am, Daryl.
Hey, you're coordinating it all and bringing it all to the right people. So that's important, right? So you go through. I just want to go back to what you were saying. You think that there's value. What I heard you say anyway was that there's value in just wait a second, just being present with the emotion of the disappointment. Or mourning the loss of that Olympic
for sure
opportunity, and versus you can do that, or you can just try to stuff it down and just wait a second. Coach said to go grind.
Yeah.
Coach said to go get back in it. So what's the balance and what's the value in doing that?
Well, I think it's important. Some athletes, there's a lot of tears, I'm sure. And like I said, in golf, it was heartbreaking for some of our golfers. And the players that were going to qualify for this Olympics may not qualify in a year, so that can be heartbreaking. But for some athletes, retiring at the end of this Olympics was trying to go down, to go out on top, was a real consideration. And I think. I think as guys too, we generally don't allow ourselves to feel remorse or to show it, or like you said, we just try and pound through it. And I've got a very smaller scale example, but I was on a call with our national amateur team, a Zoom call like this. We had a workout, then we go around and we ask everybody how they're doing in this interesting time with COVID. And I ask all the players, what's going well, is there anything that's really hurting inside? And, just really try, is there being authentic and real? And we do this, twice a week. And one of the players at the end said, well, Derek, every call you ask us how we're doing. And, we want to know how you're doing as well. And it was just happened to be a time, Daryl, where all these other times were great for me, but I was handling it fairly well, I thought. But the week before, my mom had a stroke, and I'd driven her to the emergency in my car while she was having a stroke in the front seat. And that was a really difficult week for me. She is out now and she's done better, but that was really emotional for me. And I cried a lot the nights after that, and that really hit me in that call in front of those athletes. And I was pretty emotional. Like no one had asked me, and as a coach, you're just so busy trying to lead, and I didn't know what made me share it with them, but I did, and it was very emotional for me. But after the call, our sports psychologist, called me, an hour or two later and said, Derek, I just wanted to thank you for sharing that with those people. I don't think you have any idea what kind of leadership it showed, but also the fact that you are also hurting and feeling at this time as well. And so it's a long story about, I think you have to feel that stuff, Daryl. I think it's okay to feel. As a matter of fact, I think it's important to get that out and to recognize how deeply that stuff hurts. People are struggling right now. People are losing their job. It's it's a very difficult time. People are dying. We're fortunate in Manitoba, but across Canada, it's been terrible, and certainly in the U.S. So I do feel like it's okay to grieve and to share with other people. And to, after that, it's easier to move on and to reset goals and to refocus, and then there will be some positives from this time. For me, I am super thankful for a lot of stuff about this time, but there's also a lot of hardship and difficult times.
And I appreciate that perspective, like holding the pain and the optimism, kind of in the same moments, and allowing yourself the pain, but not. But understanding that there is a silver lining, or the sun comes out tomorrow. Now, I don't mean to be hokey with the pain, but you don't want to go one way or the other too strong.
You got to feel. I think it's important that you feel it, and reflect on it, like we were talking earlier, and say, yeah, that really hurt, or this is really hurting. Mm-hmm. And then also, take some deep breaths and in your reflection, move on after a certain point and say, yeah, that really hurt, and I'm gonna, it's a tough time. But I'm also excited about the fact there's going to be some good come out of this. There's going to be some, and there has been for me personally being at home. I'm sure for you as well. Yeah. Hopefully there's been some good stuff, and we'll look back and go, geez, I'm glad I had that. I'm glad I lived that.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, it never happened when I was a kid. The whole world is, has this pause at the same time. And, my wife and I were talking about what are some things that we want to make sure that we continue on or do down the road and not just lose from this time. Do you have any that come to mind, Derek? What do you want to make sure that as you move forward from, and we get back into normal as the 3 phases kick in for Canada and, assume it's all forward marching, what do you want to continue to do that you got to experience during this time?
Well, one of the things I've just been so thankful for and appreciative of is because I travel a lot, sometimes over 200 days a year, the opportunity to eat and to be with my family every night is really something I've enjoyed a lot. I've been just thankful for that time, and really look forward to that, being able to connect with them. Especially at a time when I think it's critical for kids, who are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, to spend time with them. Also little instances like playing basketball in the driveway with my kids, stuff that I wouldn't normally do or take time to do or have the time to do. So those are, again, things I'm really enjoying. This last month I've been getting on my bike and going for a bike ride, every evening for an hour. I don't think I'd been on a bike for 10 years. I find myself like a little kid there on popping in a podcast, not a learning one, but a turn your brain off one. Sure. To enjoy while I'm having an hour and 15 bike ride. I'm not going to make the Olympics both with my bike or my action out there, but just, having time to reflect and to breathe and to plan. So I would say those are some of the big things I'm taking away from it and have really appreciated that time. And I also won't lie, I was super burnt out. I'd been to 11 different cities in 3.5 weeks and was all over the world leading up to it the last 5 or 6 months. So I was burnt out, and now I feel really, really rejuvenated.
You got the eye of the tiger back.
Well, I never had that, but I wish.
You never lost it.
Yeah, cool.
That's awesome, man. I was doing a little bit of research on some of some of your accomplishments in the Professional Golf Association Manitoba Hall of Fame inductee a few years back. Canadian Professional Golf Association award winner for Teacher of the Year, 2-time award winner. Is there any ones that you can update me? Because what I found was, a few years back, or there are some recent ones that you're excited about the recognition and of your work and effort. And
yeah, I'm the worst at that, Daryl. I try and I always say my goal in life is to help athletes get really, really great results and achieve their goals. And then the second part of that is not take credit for it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So that's kind of one of my personal mission statements. I need to be a little bit more, pat myself on the back, or hopefully there's nobody on from Toronto. I call it either Ontario or United States on this call. But anyway, I've been very fortunate in some of the things I've been able to do and where I've been. And I count myself as, one of the lucky ones. I worked really hard and I got rewarded for that hard work. But one of the ones I'm really quite pleased with is I won Coach of the Year in Manitoba. In Canada. It was a new award. Because I've won Teacher of the Year a couple times, and which was also to get voted by your peers and an association you really value as Teacher of the Year and then Coach of the Year has been kind of cool. But I would say the overarching most important goal for me is to be a hero at home. It's not. I try and remember that's the number one thing for me, and then try and help my athletes to achieve their goals and dreams and be a small piece of that or small part of that.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you on being the father and husband of the year. And
Right.
I'm not sure if you've officially received that award, but here now you have.
If my wife comes on this call, you'll know that's not true. But
in our own mind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey man, I really appreciate you making the time and just chopping it up for the last hour, and just the insights that you've shared. One thing that I really noticed, when COVID-19 hit, we could all be at risk of realizing how much our identity was tied into what we do and not necessarily who we are. For me, realizing how grateful I am to be with my family but still, be the type of person that grinds, made me feel proud of myself. And I appreciate, when you talk about the things that you want to be recognized for as being a stand-up dad and husband and pouring your life into other people, man. I have a tremendous amount of respect, and I really appreciate you sharing and taking the time. And I'm glad your mom's doing better.
Yeah, no, that's been unreal that she's doing better. And now you don't take even a second or a minute or a day for granted. You're thankful for that. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed connecting with you, Daryl, and having an opportunity to chat and share a couple stories. And it's been rejuvenating for me. And I probably got more energy out of the call than you have.
Oh man, I'm glad. Let's do it again.
Love it. Love to.
All right. Take care, man. All the best. Enjoy the time at home.